So this is an overview and a how-to of my real estate flip dashboard. My sister has been selling houses as a realtor for roughly 7 to 10 years. And in the last 2 or 3, she's gotten into, kind of flipping houses. So I put together this setup, from my own personal experience. So I'm working on remodeling my own homes. And then I've had her vet it, several times. And I've made quite a few revisions. So I finally feel like it's, kind of dialed in enough to do a video and get it posted. So the dashboard is, the entire template is really dialed in and really focused towards those that flip houses. But it does work, if you're a contractor or a residential home builder and you're turning 20, 25 properties a year, and you're trying to manage budgets, spend, and just tracking the overall properties altogether, this is still a really great tool and it still be a really good fit for you. So the key things I'll highlight, and then I'll get right into the actual dashboard itself. It allows you to manage and track 25 properties any given time. So you can have more property tabs in the system than that, but the dashboard itself, with all your charts and graphs and your trending, they're going to limit you to a side-by-side view of up to 25. Every tab, so every property has its own tab. That's how it's set up. So you get budget and spend tracking within each property tab. You'll have profit details, commissions tracking. There's some other things that we'll go over. And then in addition to that, you got a subcontractor and supplier list within, our template. And then, holistically, we really do everything to cover it kind of from the beginning of a flip to the end. So you have a front end ROI assessment, which we'll cover when I go through the dashboard. And even on the back side, you get an offer review assessment. I've got the PDF guide pulled up to the right. I'm going to, I'll try to go through that the best I can as I'm going through and doing the whole setup and going through the tool, just like you would, if you're using it for the first time and trying to use the PDF guide and follow through. So as you can see, it kind of starts with the actual, I call the entire thing the dashboard, but there is an actual dashboard within the template. That's your graphs and charts, really your visuals. So the key things, there's only a couple inputs on this. And actually I'm going to back step real quick. So with all my tools, everything's automatic as much as I can make it automatic. All the calculations, everything's formatted as consistent as I can make it. And that limits the user to basically 2 colors to interact with. That's either a white box, which is going to be a manual input, or kind of like a peach colored box, which is an automatic drop down menu. So you'll see that as we go through, starting with the actual dashboard. So as you can see, it's a drop down menu and you have to select your currency. As an example, if I change to Euro and go to like my data table, these are actually Euro. It's the actual Euro format versus something that I guess it's some other tweak that other people do that I don't preferably like. So again, we'll change it back to US dollar. So the other input on your dashboard is your profit trend start date. So on every property tab, you have an actual sale date input, which I'll cover again later. But this is the day you actually sold the property. Therefore, it's the day you actually made profit. And from that date, it knows what month it is, so it's going to pull it into your chart here. And by changing this date, I'm just changing the start date of my graph. So if it takes you 3 months or 3 years to sell 25 properties or flip 25 properties, you can index through that entire time frame by changing this month and still get a 12-month trend for whatever duration you want to look at or whatever time frame you want to start with. All right, we're going to keep going. So dashboard inputs I've covered. Service list, so we'll jump right into the supplier list. So this is as simple as it sounds. It's just a subcontractor, supplier, vendor list. The key is everything is optional except the company name. So you're going to want to use this, and there's a reason I'll show you on the property tab, but all of these become part of the drop-down menu that you're going to select as you're doing your property and you're actually spending money on the property on the flip. You're going to want to be able to document where and how you're spending the money, and this company name list is going to be how you do that, which the more I go through, I'll cover all this in more detail. On the property tab, the first thing you're going to do is you're kind of going to work top down, left to right. Okay. So first you're going to want to list your property name. So I've got, and relatively most people are going to use something like an address that they can quickly associate with the property. And you'll notice when I change that property name, it says add, it's going to update in your header. So anytime you flip open a property tab, you kind of quickly know exactly which one you're on. So I'll undo that. Put that back in there. Then you're going to set your build and flip budget. So build and flip budget is the actual flip portion. It does not include acquisition. So again, they're treated differently, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. But this is once you acquire the property, this isn't selling. This is simply how much am I going to spend remodeling bathrooms and updating countertops. Then you've got a target actual sale price. So what do you think you're going to sell it for later? And you're going to want to update this. So target and then actual. So set your target and then update your actual sale price later once you know what that is and once you finalize basically an offer. And then seller commission percentage. What are you going to pay, an agent, or what's that going to come out of your overall profit? So generally, maybe it's 5 to 7%. And then this is optional, but it's up, that's probably a good feature. I think some people like to kind of document is your home square foot. So then you can get a price per square foot of what you're selling the house for. All right, so now I'm going to move. So now we'll kind of move down into the sheet, and then we'll come back and cover some of the math up top. So the property tab is split into basically two aspects. One kind of like a before and after, if you think of it that way. So to start with, you're going to set your projected budget and actual spend. And that includes, in this case, you're going to want to list, I've got acquisition broke out different. So what are you going to pay for the property? And then on the back end, what do you think you might offer for seller concessions if the buyer is looking for some? If they're looking for closing costs, or if they're looking for a home warranty, this is what you're going to offer. And then this additional table is your itemized your itemized flip budget list, right? So demo to HVAC to kitchen updates, bathroom updates. This is a way for you to list out everything the house needs, and then take a projected cost of what that's going to be. So with that, you get an acquisition cost, you get a seller concession cost, and then you get your build flip cost down here at the bottom. So in that build flip cost in this case is $51,600. So if I go up to, if I go back up to the top, I get a summary. So everything's summarized, all the math is summarized up top. So acquisition is $97,000, build flip is $51,650, seller concessions $8,000, my seller commissions that I expect to pay when I sell the property, $10,750. So that's how the total profit is calculated in the profit percentage of sale. So total profit is $47,600. So that's this $215 minus all these other costs. So everything's captured. As long as you list and fill the sheet out as you should get a nice clean number on what your profit is, and then the percentage profit of sale. So that $47,600 is a percent. It's 22.1% of your target sale price of $215. And when you actually sell a property, you can update this number, update your commissions, and then you'll update and change your actual sale date, which I talked about when we first covered the dashboard. So that's one half, right? So you set your budget, set my projected spend. Now you have an actual column in here as well for the itemized list. And this is really optional, But if you're, one that likes to dial in your flip and say, I thought I was going to spend 51.6, you come back in and list your actual spend, and then you're going to get a variance of how you did on your projection. And that's really the only aspect of actual. You don't have to use it. It's up to you. I've got the math to account for one or the other or both. So on the right side, you've got bill, flip, spend tracking by subcontractor and supplier. So this is where your supplier list comes in hand. So I'm going to go back to that property tab. So set your date, and then you're going to pick where you spent your money, right? So this is an actual drop down of your supplier list. Now the neat thing is there's a little bit of there's some pretty neat functionality in this sheet, and I'll explain. So one is, how much did you spend? So hey, I remodeled the bathroom. I guess I could zoom in on this so you can actually see it. Probably should have done that to begin with. So, hey, I remodeled the bathroom, spent $3,500. He did it in 3 days, so he's been fully paid. So I've got a comment section up here so you can kind of see, but this column is meant for, did you pay the person in full? Because there's going to be plenty of circumstances where somebody's remodeling a bathroom or putting an addition on a house, for an example, and that might take several weeks in payments. So this gives you a way to personally track, if you're paying a certain contractor for that addition, is it just a weekly draw? Did you order materials? Or, hey, nope, this contractor's paid in full payout versus draw. And then in addition to that, you'll see as I'm adding my subcontractor and supplier for this property. So Hill Plumbing is on here twice. So Hill Plumbing. The first time was $3,500, then the next time was $649. So if I'm looking at spent to date by supplier, the first row, $3,500, and then I spent another $649 for Hill Plumbing, and this updated to the $4,149. So as you go through and pay the same supplier multiple times even for different things, it's going to let you know to date on that property how much you've spent on any given supplier. As an example, so Easy Roofing, $1,500. If I come in here and add Easy Roofing again, and let's say I spent $3,500, so I'm now up to $5,000 on Easy Roofing. So for every line item, it'll give you a new number associated with a certain vendor, which is a kind of pretty neat feature to kind of see where you're spending your money throughout the project. So next thing is the link feature, so link to dashboard. So I made a comment, when I first started this, that the dashboard, so I'll go back to that, is going to show up to 25 properties side by side, and every property has its own tab, right? Now the key is, so it'll pull in the data from every property up to 25. However, you could easily, so let's say I had 40 properties. So I'm actually going to use property 2 as an example. So I got a property 2, it's linked to property 2 tab, Tidewater. Now let's say I don't want to lose my history. I did this flip, but I no longer want to link this to my overall dashboard. Right, so I want to add a 26th property, and I don't want this pulled into the data. So if I went to property 2, link to dashboard, and I just said no. So all my data is here, nothing changed. Everything, I have complete tracking of this property that I flipped, but now I can go into my data table, and that property doesn't exist, right? It dropped it, so it's no longer going to be anywhere. It's not in the dashboard, it's not in your data table. But again, you have the tab. So now I can come down in now and change this to property 26. And then when I add a property tab named property 26, it will pull it in, and that's now part of my dashboard. But again, I never lost this property 2 tab and information and flip information. So what this means is you can compare 25 properties at any given time and pull them into your data set. But in this one file, I think Excel limits 250 tabs. So you could essentially have, you know, well over 200 properties in this file. Just as a side note. Oops, that's not what I need. Property 2. There you go. And I'll go back to see how easy that was. I changed the name. It pulls in, says link property tab. Go back in, relink, data table, and everything's back in seamlessly. So it's the link feature is a really cool feature. And it expands on capability without, having to make all these charts account for 250 properties, which would be way too long and you wouldn't be able to see anything. It'd be useless. Front end ROI assessment. So the front end ROI assessment, it's really very, very similar to the property budget projected and actual spend setup. It's intended that way, but it's a separate tab, so you don't have to create a property tab and start populating all that information. You basically just say, hey, look, this is my profit goal. I want to make at least 20%. I think I could sell that house for $180,000. List, as you did your walkthrough, list what you think it needs, and then you quickly get a review. Hey, based on what you inputted, you might make $19,000 and 10% profit. So profit goal was 20. I'm going to make 10. You might make a decision that no, I don't want to flip this property. And by using that tool, you're not creating a property tab and start to fill all this information out. It's essentially the same, but it separates it and makes it a little easier for you. And then we get into the offer review. So for the offer review and assessment, you'll start kind of work top to bottom. So select your property. I'm going to use from the drop down, we'll do the Tidewater property. Your currency is already selected. Again, that's automatic now based on your dashboard selection. Current offer, $215. Total commissions that you think you're going to pay or would expect it to be pay as part of the sale, be 5%. So one thing I will highlight is on the commission percentage, make sure you include the buyer and seller percentage in total that's going to come out of your profits. And even if you're a real estate agent, make sure you do it that way, and I'll explain why in a second. So with that, you get an estimated, actually I'm going to skip down a little bit further. So some of these numbers are a summary based on also what gets pulled down here. So your build flip cost based on your actual property selection will get auto pulled in. So build flip 51.6, acquisition cost 97. This auto pulls in from the property selection, the property tab. And then you're going to plug in, you can manually plug in your seller concessions. So hey, I'm paying $7,900 closing and paying for the termite bond of $100 or whatever that is. Now your paid commissions, the $10,750 is the 5% of the $215. So that's auto calculated down here in the table to give you a total cost of $167.4. Selling for $215, so that's your estimated total profit is the $47.6 at 22.1%. Now on top of that, so this is total profit on the property. Now let's say you're a real estate agent, so there's an additional block down here, and you get a percentage of the commissions. So of the 5%, you get 35% of that. So let's say normally it's probably 50%, but for some reason, let's say you're only taking 35. So of that 5%, of that $10,750, if you're getting 35, then you're going to earn $2,700 for that. And then let's say on the flip property, you are flipping houses with 2 or 3 people. Let's say 2 or 1 other person. So that means of the total profit, you're going to earn 50%. Let's say you're doing an even split. So out of the $47.6, you're getting $23.8, so you're getting 50%. And on top of that, you're getting 35% of the commissions. So total profit is $47.6, but your personal net earn on the property is the $26,565, so 12.4%. And again, I did this because, I think realtors tend to like to get into flipping houses personally a lot. And then they also get a commission aspect, so I built that into the offer review. All right, we'll keep going. So property tabs. So I didn't really show this. I talked about it. So on the data table, the template comes with two kind of pre-filled property tabs as examples, and then a blank property template. So going back to the data table, you're allowed up to 25. You can add more, but you can trend 25. We talked about that. So ultimately, you might be asking, where are the rest of my property tabs? Well, you just have to create them. So you'll right click on any given tab you want to copy, maybe preferably the blank one. So move or copy, create a copy, okay. And you'll watch, so if I come down here, so I'll go into the property name. So let's say I'm going to say new property, just an example, keep it easy. So new property populates in the header. And then if I go down here, so property template, it says property template number 2. Change that to number 3. Oops, property 3, not number 3. So now if I go back to my data table, I didn't like that. I don't like the property name in it. Let's change that. So we'll change this to Highview Street. There you go. Go back to the data table. Well, go back to the data table. Now it says Highview Street. And you'll notice everything says Update Property tab. That's because it's looking at the tab and knows there's nothing populated yet outside of the sale date, which was already pre in there. So I'll go back to property 3, go back to the data table. So you do that for as many times you need. You also notice on the dashboard, and now it says Highview Street. That third one's pulled in here. There's no data, so there's no bar charts. But I will notate, so on these two charts, they're not tied together, but the arrow reflects is 5951 Acton Road is your first bar for your top and bottom graph. So they'll overlap basically on top. And I did that so I'm not taking up extra and additional space with the property name on both charts. It wasn't necessary. So I'm allowed to make the visuals a little bigger that way. And that's essentially it. That's the entire property. That's how you use it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.